morning, guys. It's great to be around the table with you this morning. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. Been looking forward to this one.
Yeah.
I hate that I'm not in a tree in the middle of the woods right now, and it's okay. It's okay. There's forgiveness.
Yeah.
I choose to be at work right now, but it is fall. I was driving to work, and the leaves were falling. It was cool, and I thought, this is wrong. This is wrong that I'm here right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here lately, or you're just kind of getting started where that's becoming part of your office, you know, with SHIELD Outdoors.
My wife loves that now I have to hunt for work. That's it's put a really good spin on my hobby now.
Yeah.
I get to take officers with me, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure I really thought that through when you brought up this whole SHIELD Outdoors idea.
Hey, yes is yes. I got an approval. It's in an email. Let's roll.
Well, guys, I am stoked for today's episode. We have a guest, and if they haven't already been able to tell, we have got them calling in by phone because they don't live around here. And so we met this I'm gonna let her introduce herself in just a minute. We met her, I almost said her name, but I want to let her do that, and we're gonna let her introduce herself here in just a second. But we met at the First Responder Wellness Conference, I guess in 2024, and man, she really gave so much good stuff to help officers and law enforcement and first responders in general. And so we just reached out. You never know if somebody would agree to do something until you ask. You're in no worse shape when you ask than if you don't, And so we reached out, and she, I couldn't believe it. She accepted and was willing to sit down with us on the podcast today. And so we're excited to have her. So without further ado, I'm going to let her introduce herself, tell us a bit about her. So take it away.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Jennifer Boileau. And yes, it was so amazing to meet all of you at the conference a couple of years ago. I've loved following all the work that you do. And I've been lucky enough to get to hang out with Scarlett always gets top billing, I feel like. Do you guys feel like that?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, for sure.
But my background in, how I got involved with supporting first responders with resiliency, my background is in special education. So my life BC before children, I was a special education teacher. And over the years, I had worked on myself so much, trying to find ways to help support myself dealing with anxiety, stress, really unresolved trauma from when I was young. And what I kept coming back to was, I would try to work with a doctor on some meds maybe or something. And not like medication is a bad thing. It can be wonderful. But for me, it was not helpful. And so I started leaning into the kinds of practices that address what we already have within ourselves. Like, how can I change my breathing? How can I perhaps try meditation or the physical practice of yoga? And the more I learned all these practices, the better I felt. And it made me want to share it with other people. And being in a law enforcement family, my husband has been on the job for the last 26 years. He's retired after 21 years with the police department, but now he's with the Department of Justice in a different role in his retirement gig, which has been wonderful. But I certainly saw what he was experiencing on the job. We met in the 6th grade, you guys, so we've known each other a really long time. And so, I could see what the job was doing to him in how it took away his ability to get a good night's sleep, or how the stressors of the kinds of things he was experiencing on the job, the things he was seeing, the things he would, and really compartmentalize so much. I started realizing, hey, all these practices that I found supportive for myself, this would be really great for you and your team. What do you think about, let's try some of this for you. Let's try some of this for the guys. And next thing you know, it just really ignited in me this desire to keep sharing it. And, let's face it, 20 years ago, this wasn't a hot topic, right? This was still a little stigmatized, like keep it quiet over here. Maybe no one needs to know about XYZ, or people weren't really open to it. But now things are so different. I have this ability to drive on whether or not people seem open at the time or not, thank goodness, because now it's just been embraced by so many people, how to use the skills you have within to help you move through anything that you're experiencing, and really empowering first responders. So So that's what I do. It's really a personal vocation for me. You know, I feel like just like being a special ed teacher was, I felt a calling, a vocation. I feel that this work is the same. My classroom has changed, but I feel like that calling to serve, right, is the same. So, and I always joke when I walk into a group full of officers, dispatchers, fire, medics, it doesn't matter. I tell everybody, listen, you're just family I haven't met yet. And that also means that you're stuck with me now. Okay. So I don't need to know you personally to care about you. I know how you give of yourselves. I know how much you sacrifice of yourselves. I know how your families serve alongside of you. And there's just nothing I love more than getting to work in this space. It's everything.
That's awesome. I think when I first heard you talk, it was very apparent that, number one, that you deeply cared for those in that world. So your classroom has changed. And it's moved from kids that have special needs to officers that have very special needs. And that's cool that your heart transitioned to that. And kind of my other takeaway was you were extremely respectful to that profession. And I think that earns a seat at the table a lot of times.
Yeah, I think for sure, and I'm sure you understand this, especially now because you talk about how you guys kind of kept that in-house there for a while, and now what's happened is your territory has greatly expanded. But in the process of that was having to, like, I'll use the terminology Garrett just used, earning that seat at the table. And then that's allowed you to continue to earn the seat at a lot of different tables, because we understand that greatly. We often say that it takes 3 years for people who do like what we do and serve to really gain the respect and the ability to have a seat at that table for people to trust us. And so we know that you understand that as well. And like you said, this was very taboo 20 years ago, you know, use that word, versus now, like you said, we have seen such a drastic growth in things such as peer support, mental health awareness, you know, all the different things that are there now that didn't exist 20 or 25 years ago. And we're having those conversations with command staff and different people in departments where we're trying to continue to open these doors to be able to do things to help officers, to help first responders, to help their families with the work they do, because it definitely stresses. We can use that term, but nobody really understands it unless they're in that world.
That is so true. I joke that I'm a 7-year overnight success, because when I tell you there was a solid 6-7 years where I was kind of tapping on the shoulder of any department who would listen. And really, I mean, like, people we knew, right? Like, hey, this could be really supportive. Like, I look at these practices as this added layer of inner safety for your officers, right? I know the tactical stuff is super important, not negating that, but I'm concerned about the flip side of that coin, right? So what's the flip side of that when you try to lay your head down on the pillow at night, or when you get back in your squad car after you just saw something horrific, or you had to just take that call on dispatch, you know, and you have that quiet moment afterward? How can I help you move through that? And it really was, it was really this interesting test of how can I keep going and dedicating myself to this? Because quite frankly, I spent years and years and years in training to be very specific to law enforcement, first responder, military worlds. You know, it's one thing to say I'm a cop's wife, and it's another thing to say I've put in years of training specific to your population, right? That I've really tried to embody what I don't know in that first person experience. And my husband will tell you, I don't like to hear the word no when it's something that I'm passionate about. So that actually helped me in that regard, because working in the face of seemingly, now I know this isn't the case, but seemingly outwardly no result, that's a challenge, right? And I had to just keep leaning into something that perhaps at the time, like you were saying, it was so taboo. I wasn't really seeing a lot of agreement at the time. But I just felt so drawn to it. And I remember saying to my husband at one point, I feel like if I don't keep doing this, it's like I don't have air. Like I feel like I am so drawn to this magnetically, like I just need to do it. And whether anyone listens to me or not, I don't know. I feel like eventually they will. And now, I get to visit you in Virginia, you guys in Virginia all the time now. It's really been really a practice in just trusting and leaning into what you're being called to do, even if perhaps rationally on the outside you can't see the path or it doesn't make sense, but just trusting and not needing to see what's next in front of you, just keep leaning into it. It's been a really interesting.
Well, if anybody, if anybody understands that, that's us.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
we totally get that, all together,
Hearing you discuss that, it just, I can identify greatly with what you're saying.
You tap on shoulders and say, hey, I think this could help. I think it could help. I think it could help. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, we have an opportunity to help. We need to slow down. And from listening to your story, that's kind of where you're at. Just for those that maybe don't know you, we've had the privilege of sitting through a couple classes, and just to be very honest, I hear some of the guys talking about some of the things that you taught them. So that's really cool for our side to see that, hey, it equipped our officers in an area they really, really desperately need. But for maybe those that are listening in our local area that have not heard about you or what you do, can you just give them a little bit of like, what are some of those classes that you teach?
Sure. So I teach, in general, the practices that I teach are all bringing you back into your own body and your mind. How can I help you harness what you already have within to help you process the kinds of things that you're experiencing? So I use what I call my 3B method, focusing on practices that support the brain, the body, and the breath. And so to address the brain and the thoughts, right? Because I know you put your head down on the pillow and chances are you're thinking every thought you've ever had your whole life, right? Suddenly your mind is super busy. We use something called I-rest meditation or integrative restoration. And that is a 10-step protocol that helps really act like a guidepost to help you draw your attention from the busyness of the mind into the physical sensation in the body, as well as being able to be present with what's arising. So whether it's thoughts or feelings or emotions or perhaps beliefs about yourself. So I-rest meditation, and I can go into it more later, but that's a great it's a great roadmap. I feel like it's something that you can pick apart in minutes at a time, or it's also a practice that I can guide you through that's perhaps a little bit longer. And I'll be happy to share with your listeners as well some recordings afterward that they could listen to and access anytime. So I'll make sure I send that to you after our chat today so that you can share that.
That'd be awesome.
We also address the breath. Protocol. I did a year of study of the psychophysiology of the breath with him in particular. But breath work has been something over the last, 15, 20 years that's been really important. One of the first things that goes out the window when we're experiencing stress, whether it's on the job or maybe it's something really challenging you're going through personally, one of the first things that goes out the window is your breath. Right? If you think about, God forbid you get bad news, the first thing you might gasp, right? You might hold your breath. You might feel that the breathing is out of control. Maybe you're starting to hyperventilate. Having the ability to tap into practices that harness your breathing, that's huge. And that can create that's probably the fastest way to create a change in your nervous system response if you feel like it's not congruent with the situation, like perhaps you're experiencing an anxiety attack or something, or maybe you were out on an accident scene and the person had a particular hat that was the victim, and you're out, you go grocery shopping, and you see somebody with that hat on, and you're suddenly drawn back into that experience of overwhelm and panic. In that moment, standing in the grocery store, you're not in the midst of that critical incident, but your body and your mind might be reacting as if you are.
Yep.
You learning to recognize that that's happening, increasing that level of awareness. Okay, this is starting to happen. How can I use my breathing right now to help myself regulate what I'm experiencing in the body so that I can keep going, right? Perhaps I can finish grocery shopping. Or maybe you need to take a minute, right? But being able to use your breathing as a tool. I always joke when I teach this in class, like, listen, I know you're all looking at me like, Jen, I've been breathing for like 50 years. Thanks. I know how to do it. I'm doing a good job. You are, but can you use your breath as a tool in those moments when you are experiencing, a stressor? So I focus on that, as well as some physical practices. So to address the body, I love to utilize yin yoga when I'm working with first responders, because that practice gets into the fascia that surrounds the muscles. So, often from being in repeated positions, like sitting at your desk for long periods of time, especially if you're like dispatch, you're a call taker, perhaps you have a desk job and you find yourself seated often. Maybe you have those aches and pains, hips, low back, perhaps your shoulders or your neck. If you're on the job in the law enforcement capacity and you're wearing a duty belt, or, my husband was SWAT for many, many years on the job, and I know that gear is heavy. Just picking it up for a minute, I'm like, how do you wear this? How do you wear this so often? This is really, really heavy. Those kinds of stressors that are happening to the physical body, even if you've been to the range all day, you had a long qualification day, you had to do a daytime and a nighttime shoot or whatever it might be, being in a contracted position for long periods of time. How do we open the body back up? So when I come and teach classes, especially for the state of Virginia, I'm focusing on how to use these strategies. And I don't always do the physical part in class. So if you see I have a class coming up and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do the physical part, don't worry. We don't do any acrobatics or anything. Sometimes people hear yoga and they start to panic. It's all done from a seat. It could be done from a chair. It's very simple, but also maybe progressive muscle relaxation, right? Learning how to mindfully contract and release muscles throughout the body to just find a little bit of ease in the physical body. So I teach classes to address people that are approaching retirement. That's what I had most recently at the Roanoke Police Academy. I teach all of those practices, the brain, breath, body, in an 8-hour workshop where we do get into some of the physical pieces. And in that physical aspect in class, we also use something called the melt method to release that fascia specifically in the hands and the feet. And I think if you were at the wellness conference, you may have been in breakout session with me with that small firm ball and then like the stress ball where we were getting into the hands and feet to find that relief in the body.
Actually, Darren told us about the melt method. It was a little different. It had more to do with ice cream. So I'm thankful to hear it. I am thankful to hear it specifically from your mouth. But the class that you taught at the City Academy, I've recently taught. This is such a practical thing. I've just heard from guys that went to that class, and it was extremely helpful.
Oh, that's great.
Kind of how practical this topic is, and kind of zooming into where we want to go today on the specific issue of sleep. That's kind of one of the many things that you have worked on. Scripture says, and me and you have talked about this a little bit at the conference, that we are to take every thought captive. That is a command of ours. And so what is cool is to see people like yourself who specialize in helping us do that. Our minds do race, and they lie to us. They feel like that we're at danger or at the scene or wherever, and our minds, we have to take them captive. And so I think what you're doing is extremely helpful, because you're giving guys tools in their tool belts to help reduce some of that hopelessness that can come with all of that trauma. And so that's fantastic. One of the things that we are very interested in hearing about, specifically from you, this is, again, one of your areas of expertise, is that you have heard over the years, you've heard your husband or their friends say it, that this is just one of the results of the job. And they just accept these negatives. So the nightmares, the lack of sleep. I've heard guys say that, hey, I'm on night shift, I guess I won't sleep for the next 6 weeks. That they just accept that this is part of it. And you're pushing back and saying, hey, I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. You can recharge, you can heal, and you can do that through specifically the area of sleep. So talk to us just a little bit about it. If you're talking to an officer who says, just like most of them, hey, I don't sleep well. My average sleep is a couple hours a night. It's not good sleep. I have dreams that I don't appreciate. And so I would just much rather stay late and work double. Tell us what you would say to them.
Well, first off, I'll tell you that sleep, I think, is, and I know I shared this at the conference, it's that door that everyone will walk through. I find that when it comes to anything related to something that might feel like it has a stigma attached with mental health, sleep is a great doorway. So I would say, not only to the person, to the officer, but if they're in a place of, hearing from their coworkers, man, they seem like they're not themselves. I don't know how to approach them and talk to them about what I'm seeing. Maybe the behavior is changing a little bit. Talk about sleep with the person, because that is going to be the most acceptable doorway to walk through. That's what I have found.
That's really good.
Hands down. I bring that up because I recently was at a very large department, and the supervisors were asking me, when I see someone come in, maybe they're coming in late to work, or they seem super irritable, they're flying off the handle, there's these things going on. I don't know how to approach them about these things without just saying, hey, just go to EAP, go just kind of sloughing them off. And I said, ask them, like, hey, how are you sleeping? Because chances are their sleep is total trash, right? And when your sleep is a complete disaster, it might not just be because of the constant shifts. It might be because there's something else really heavy weighing on them. And they're more likely to perhaps let that come to the surface if they walk through a door that feels as comfortable as a discussion about sleep. So I invite people to use that as a doorway into perhaps other things that might come to the surface. But to answer your question, I think when it comes to sleep, we know that we can't change the schedule, right? We can't change the fact that you worked all day, because, and I'll use my husband as an example. He was undercover in the drug unit for a long time, and also SWAT for like most of his career. So he'd go and work his regular shift, come home, get something to eat, see the kids. We have 3 daughters who are now all adults. Oh my gosh. But anyway, and then barely put his head on the pillow. And then, and I'm dating myself here, the pager would go off, right? For SWAT. I'm definitely dating myself. I realize that, right? So
that's okay. I used to have one of those too. So.
Okay. All right.
I get it.
All right.
It's okay.
So, and then it's like, okay, well, he slept for maybe an hour, and now he's got to go in and, as a team leader, set up the ops meeting, make the plan, go execute it, be back by maybe 6:30, 7 a.m. Oh, great. He gets to go to work for his next regular shift for the drug unit in like 2 more hours. Awesome. It was like, how are you supposed to go and function at work? And I know for myself as the spouse at home, my worry was safety. You're so tired. How can you go and operate? Say you have to, God forbid, use, all of your tools at your disposal. How are you able to function and be alert and be accurate and have the fine motor control and all of that stuff when you are this tired. So from the spouse end of the fence, wow, that was always that was always a concern.
And when they got home, so let's say you just described a pretty normal day for the majority of our officers. They're pushing that envelope of what a good night's rest should look like, and even what a nap would look like. And they're operating at an extremely high level that nobody else in this country will operate at. And we expect that of them. And then from the spouse's side, I can kind of hear it in your voice. When they have, let's say they have a 3-day weekend, it's a miracle. They're not on call. They're off the rotation. Their chalk is not on the next up, and they have 3 days. Are they a pleasant human those 3 days? Or are they trying to get their feet back underneath them? So what kind of quality is that? So it's an extremely important thing.
It's really challenging. It's really challenging. And, it's something that you can't control. So from my perspective, I can't change that. I can't change the things that you're seeing, what you've experienced, what your senses have been exposed to by the kinds of scenes you've had to go to. And then perhaps, I remember there's a couple of instances that really stand out to me, but one was a very young child death my husband had to investigate. And then he had to come home to our children who were the same age. And, those kinds of stressors, unfortunately, we can't change those kinds of things. But if I can help you in times of ease, lean into the parts of yourself that can be restorative, right? That can offer you that kind of brain rest. If I can help you empower yourself to tap in, even if it's like 5-10 minutes at a time during times of ease, when you have those times where you are just nonstop, right? It's just one of those, weeks where it's like, man, you're just getting called out all the time. You will be more likely to lean back into those practices during that time and offer yourself that kind of brain rest, and you will feel better from it. And to give you an example, I've recently worked with the Philadelphia SWAT team. I've been working with them for quite a while, but this one instance, recently, an officer, after our practice together, he said, I don't know what just happened during that practice, but I feel so awake right now, and I don't understand it, because you had us be still and guided us through this practice of tapping into the senses. I was Iris is the practice I was using specifically, and he said, usually at this time of day, I am looking for a place to take a nap. Right? I'm usually trying to figure out how can I sleep for 30 minutes? Because it was around 2:30 in the afternoon. And he's like, usually because of the shift I'm on, I just want to find a place to sleep for a little bit. He's like, but instead I feel energized, and it doesn't make sense because you just had us be so still. So how could I be this calm yet feel great sense of energy about myself? He's like, I don't understand it. And I said, well, hey, just go with it. Ride the wave, right? This is what's happening. When you allow yourself to have that kind of brain rest, your brain gets this restoration. Your physical body feels restored when you're getting out of your head and turning your attention into the body. Suddenly you have this renewed sense of clarity. And it's wow, this feels kind of good. I think I want to feel like this again. Right. Which is why I always offer recordings to people after the fact. And if I don't have something recorded that addresses what you need specifically, I will create it, because if you need it, someone else needs it too. And, I joke, I'm like a DJ. I take requests. Okay. I'll do anything you need. And then you can share it out with whoever you want. I'm not a don't look at my paper kind of girl. I want you to share it.
So, Can I ask you this? So I'm hearing this, and it's so as Gareth was saying, our officers and officers everywhere. I mean, right? they face the sleep issue. It's so common, it's especially, they're on nights and then they have to show up for court and all this kind of stuff. There's, sleep is such and in fact, just this weekend for me, I'd been asleep for about an hour and a half and, my phone rang and, I had to respond to, a situation involving one of our departments, our officers and so I was, and I didn't have to be gone too long. I was gone from the house about 2.5 hours, but I'd been asleep for an hour and a half and got back home maybe around 3:30 or so. It took me a little while to wind down and try to get back to sleep, which I'm going to wake up early no matter what time I put my head down, it seems. What are there any practical steps that I can take in that kind of scenario for me and for these officers who do have those call outs or that kind of thing that would help ensure that maybe we're able to get some deep rest or maybe ease our minds, ease our thoughts a bit so we can, because oftentimes, right, when you get those call outs and things, you go from being sound asleep to being amped up and just even to try to figure out how to come down from that to actually sleep is a challenge at times. What are there like practical things that we can do that you can maybe walk us through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the first thing is when you're lying there and maybe the thoughts are starting up, it sounds maybe a little too simple at first, but becoming aware of the thinking mind. So it's almost like you allow yourself to be the observer of the thoughts, because sometimes when we are maybe thinking about that call you were just out on, you're still consumed with it, right? You're still there. So having that mindset of, I'm going to be the observer of my thoughts right now. So you're recognizing that the thoughts are busy, having this increased level of awareness. Okay. So noticing, oh my gosh, I'm going down this rabbit hole, right? Yep. Because sometimes you can go down the rabbit hole and next thing you know, you've been there for a half hour, maybe 2 hours, and you're like, this alarm is going to go off. What am I doing? So it's noticing that, okay, I'm going down the rabbit hole. Instead of being kind of ticked off at yourself that you're letting it happen again, use that awareness as a pointer and let it direct you back to a practice. So I like to start with something that's the more, gross physical body first, because I think that's the most accessible thing. So immediately I would say progressive muscle relaxation. I feel like that is one of the quickest things that you can do that engages the physical body. And again, it's this form of attention training. We're getting you out of your head and into the body. So even for a moment, I mean, can I guide you through a couple things real quick?
Sure. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So even for a moment, wherever you're sitting right now listening to this, if you're lying down, if you're seated, just noticing perhaps the sensation of your breath as it moves through the nostrils, maybe even having this awareness if the breath feels warm or cool as it passes through the nostrils. And chances are you've been, if you're listening, you've been breathing the whole time. But have you noticed what the temperature of the air feels like? Probably not, right? So directing yourself to the most simple aspects of yourself, but aspects that are always here. These are tools you have access to all the time. Your breath, your body, your senses. So as you're lying there, you're noticing, what does that air temperature feel like moving through the nostrils? Really sensing into that space. Then perhaps you start to open to the senses, right? So what are the sounds inside your bedroom? What are the sounds outside the room? And just having this awareness of how you don't have to try right? How the sounds just make their way into your awareness. And you can just notice them. Notice how you're not attaching to anything. You're just noticing what's present. Noticing perhaps the leftover taste in the mouth from something you had to eat or drink, or brushing your teeth. So it's taking these simple aspects of the senses, or this information that the body is giving us all the time, and suddenly becoming aware of it. Notice how we're directing attention, right? Suddenly, you don't have time to think about that scene you were on, because you're really focused on rotating through the senses here. Mm. So if we don't give the mind a one-pointed focus, and in yoga we call it a drishti, but it means one-pointed focus. If we don't give the mind something to focus on, it's going to find something for us, and chances are we're not going to like it, right? It's not going to be something that's useful. So tapping into the senses, and then perhaps you ball the hands up into fists, and you squeeze your fist and engage the muscles in the arms as tight as you can. And as you take your next deep breath in your own time, you really become aware of that stress and tension building, and see if you can squeeze the hands even a little tighter, engage the muscles a little bit more, really stiffening through the arms. You could even press the hands together to create some sensation across the chest if you wanted. And after your next deep breath in, feeling that build, and on your exhale, ever so slowly, start to gently release the hands. Let all of that tension just melt away from the muscles in the arms. And notice how ever so slowly you feel that relief. Perhaps you feel the blood rush back into the fingertips. The arms can feel heavy, rested. You know, as you're going through progressive muscle, and I can let the audio that I send you be one of those progressive muscle relaxation audios that people can listen to a much longer practice of it. But just notice how that was just a few minutes, right? But perhaps the body feels more at ease right now. And now you're maybe worry about falling asleep because you know, oh man, I'm going to be up the rest of the night. You know, that's the usual. But notice how when you become the observer, and don't get upset by the thought, you know, use that thought that keeps coming up as like, thank you. I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting to be distracted. Thanks. Now that I know you're here, I'm going to use you as my pointer that's going to send me back to this practice. Because I think oftentimes when we're experiencing discomfort, right, or having a hard time sleeping or whatever, we can start to feel like it's like a hot stove. Like you don't want to touch it, right? You don't want to get stuck in that loop or that rabbit hole of thinking about past events that are challenging or upsetting. But perhaps instead of having that initial pullback and like, I don't want to touch that. Instead, if it's like, oh, well, I'm the observer now. Thanks for showing up. You just reminded me I need to come back to this practice. And then guiding yourself through something supportive like that, you're giving yourself the brain rest that you need. You're giving yourself one pointed focus. And chances are, and you can tell me once you get the recordings, you probably won't hear my voice after the first 5 minutes, right? Because you'll be asleep. So knowing that you can do that for yourself, right? That you can tap into the practice enough during those times of ease so that when you're finding that discomfort or disconnect arising, you're guiding yourself, right? Just think of me like the tour guide. I don't want anyone to ever need me, right? I don't want you to need, you have to only hear my voice. It's like I'm teaching you how to use yours, right? Because you have this ability. Like you said, like people feel that sense of hopelessness. Like, this is just how it is. You know, I'm always going to feel like crap, and I'm only 10 years in, and how am I going to do this for the next 10 years? You know, I hear that a lot. And I think when people realize that you have more at your disposal than you realize. And that might sound like a little cheesy, a little like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz kind of vibe, like you already had it within you, right? But you really do.
So we were going to ask a question, but based off of what the things that we just heard you talk about and all the different practical ways to help with this sleep, it sounds like it doesn't really matter whether it's the shift work, whether it's coming home from work and getting called back out for a SWAT call 2 hours later, or whether it's literally the stress from maybe something they endured 4 days ago. Is my interpretation correct that really all of this that you just shared with us would be very much appropriate for any of those scenarios, regardless of where they find themselves in that? Would you say that's appropriate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, the beauty of these practices is, you know, it's wonderful for you and for those of you on the job, but it's great for your spouses too, or even your little ones. You know, kids go to school and they have school stress, or perhaps they're nervous about what their parent does when they go to work, right? And they may have their own stressors too. And these kinds of practices help, you know, support you not only on the job, but off the job and in your life as well.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me ask you this question as we're going to start to wrap things up here today. I want to make sure that we're honoring of your time for you giving us to be here today. So I want to kind of finish this up with one last question at the end. So I want you to imagine for a minute, you know, the officers that are tuning into this episode, and maybe some of their spouses, some dispatchers, other first responders that are listening in, and they're thinking, man, we've heard a lot of good tools, a lot of good things, but they just feel extremely overwhelmed in this area. And they're like, I'm miserable. I'm like you said it yourself, you know, you just feel like you can't sleep. I don't want to have to deal with this for the next 10 years. And they're kind of on their last leg, and they're thinking, I need somewhere to start tonight. I need a real practical piece to get started with this tonight. Where do I begin? What if they're thinking, I'm listening to this and I'm going to go home and I'm going to try this tonight? Where do you tell them to start?
I would say that, similar to what we shared earlier, that progressive muscle relaxation might be one of the best things to jump into, because that gross physical body, that gives you something tangible to grab hold of right away. Okay. So first I would say, let's figure out what's impeding your ability to sleep. Gotcha. Probably it's the busyness of the mind. Look at what we can control, right? Because like we said, we can't control the shifts. We can't, alter the call out schedule. So what can we control?
Gotcha.
And that is tapping into brain rest when you have the ability to do it. And I would say to start working on increasing your level of awareness so that you feel more in control. So noticing when you feel like you're getting pulled a little left of center, when you're starting to feel like not yourself, right? So having that awareness of catching it a little bit sooner than the point where you're just in complete exhaustion. So when you start to feel like, man, I'm really having a hard time focusing, and recognizing that it is from perhaps not getting the sleep, noticing it early, making a conscious choice to refocus your attention, whether it's tapping into the senses, whether it's, slowing down your breathing, or tapping into that physical practice when you're lying down of that progressive muscle relaxation, you will start to recognize that you have a lot more control than you realize, that you have a lot more of an ability to find that level of ease within yourself, just by redirecting the thoughts and getting out of the head and into the body. So I would say that progressive muscle relaxation when you lie down can be probably the quickest way to help yourself settle in and focus the attention, so that the thoughts aren't what keep you up all night. It's your focused attention of going inward, helping you to get that get that rest when you need it.
Yeah. So this immediately made me think about the counselor that I talked to, and he never lets me leave a session without looking at me, and he holds two hands up and he'll just like palms up, and he'll always remind me. He'll like kind of tap his left hand and he'll say can do, and he'll tap his right hand. He said can't do. So let's just talk reality for these officers. They can't change the schedule. They have no control over the call outs. They have no control over the schedule. And so those are the things they don't have any control over. But the other hand, the things that are the can do, the things of being able to focus on taking those thoughts captive, being able to, do these things that will help them get some sleep. Those are the things they do have control over. And that's really what they need to focus on, and not find themselves trying to grip a hold of the things that they have zero control over. I think that's a huge deal. So,
on maybe a not so serious note, what do you tell somebody who may have a very slight snoring issue that
Miss Jennifer,
his coworkers complain?
It's not slight.
It's abusive. It's appalling.
Is this when you had to get the separate room?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
I was faking because I wanted a room to myself.
No, he was not faking at all.
No, I was assaulted all night long, and then you died 47 times in your sleep because you have sleep apnea. So, yeah,
Yeah, let's not make this something that it's not. So,
speaking of grounding techniques, I'm going to have to bring myself back down after that.
I've got a bit of a problem, I think.
Yeah.
You might.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
You might. There's certain things I can't fix, and I think it might be one of them.
Yep.
Yeah, correct.
It's important to recognize
you guys are
that.
great.
So that's good.
Yeah. We're just going to accept this. We're just going to accept.
Yeah, this
is
what medical doctors are for, and this is what sleep tests and sleep studies are for. So
exactly. Oh my gosh.
Well, Jennifer, we cannot say thank you enough for being willing to take some time to spend with us. I'm very thankful for the things that you've shared. I can personally attest, as someone who struggles going to sleep at night because my brain won't shut off. And we were both times when we were at the conference, I did these things that she's talking about that she shared with a large group of people when I was in there. And I was asleep in no time. I woke up to when you were finishing this. And so very much I can attest that this stuff does work. I'm a very big supporter, which is why we wanted to reach out, because this is some really good stuff. And she's, like she said, she's going to send some stuff our way, and we'll link that in the description with the episode so that you'll have access to it. We'll share that with you so that you can get all of that. But thank you so much for taking time to spend with us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. You guys are the best. Well, I love everything that you do, so thank you.
And I want you to know that Scarlett really was paying attention, because she apparently put things into practice. She's been sleeping for at least half this episode.
Yep.
What a good girl.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and she's even had a couple of moments where she's kind of been like kicking her left legs and like she's battling somebody in her sleep. So
do dogs get a
really
sleep?
deep.
I don't know.
So
getting that restorative rest.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Well, we hope you have a wonderful day. We're looking forward to getting a chance to get some feedback from those who listen on this episode. If you have any further questions, we can get you her information. There's going to be some of that stuff that's going to be linked. And we hope to see you guys back on the next episode of the SHIELD Armory. Thanks for spending time today with us on the SHIELD Armory. We hope this episode brought encouragement, insight, and a reminder that you're not alone out there. Whether you're on the road, behind the desk, on dispatch, or at home, know that your service matters and you are seen. If this episode helped you in any way, share it with someone you feel it could be an encouragement to. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay safe, stay grounded, and as always, watch your six.